so there's a bit of an end of semester race that we have, whether it's as a lecturer or a school teacher, to see if you can get to the end of the teaching period without losing your voice. And as you can potentially hear, I have lost that battle this time around, but I still wanted to make this video for you guys because I have been talking a lot to my students lately about how to prepare for their end of semester assessments. They're oftentimes a really large percentage weighting, so they can be pretty stressful. And some of those assessments are things like tests and exams. And so I think this is a really important conversation to have to make sure everybody's tracking okay and feeling on top of things. And so I'm going to ask you to do a bit of a weird thing, but whether you are a current school student or a current uni student, someone in between those two periods, whether you're a school teacher or an adult, a parent, I'm really hoping that you will right now think about a topic that really you are passionate about. You love it. So something that you really love talking to other people about. You love it when you go and meet new people and it turns out they have the same passion as you because you feel like you could talk all day and all night about this particular topic. You know, you spent hours and hours kind of reading about it, writing about it, looking at the internet on it, consuming as much detail as you can because it's a topic that you really love. For me, perhaps a few years ago, that might have been something like Harry Potter, the novels of Harry Potter, or perhaps episodes of The West Wing. That might be showing my age a bit, but something that you just really got into and feel happy talking to other people about. All right, I hope you've got that in your mind, because the next question I'm going to ask you is, what happens if right now I asked you to sit a test on that topic? So by test or exam, we're talking about something that's invigilated. So, you know, me or somebody else would be in the room to make sure it's actually you taking the assessment. Usually a test or exam is something that's timed, so there's a bit of pressure there. It's not like you have forever to sit and think about things. You're really trying to answer the questions as quickly as you can. And perhaps the most important aspect of a test or exam is that when you're in the room doing it yourself, you don't have access to other materials. So you can't Google something or ask a friend or go and read a textbook or, you know, go to generative AI or anything like that. What you're relying on is putting down your answers based on your personal individual understanding, so your personal content knowledge. So I'm hoping that having thought about that, if someone said to you, you've got to sit a test on your topic that you're so passionate about, then you might feel a little bit of anxiety because, of course, you want to do well. This is something that people know that you love, so you're trying to do a good job at it, but you're probably not going to feel a deep sense of anxiety because you already know for a fact that you've put the hours in. You know an awful lot about that topic, in fact, probably a lot more than most other people do, and you've done the time, you've done the test already in the sense that you've spoken a lot to other people, you've done all the research, you know that you know a lot of information about that topic. And so the purpose of me raising this as an example or an analogy is to say that tests and exams are incredibly stressful if they are the point in time when a student first finds out what they personally do and don't know. But they're not very stressful if they're at the time when a student's going in having done loads of practice tests and loads of revision. At that point, there might be a few butterflies because you're trying to do well, but there's not that sort of gaping sense of horror that am I going to walk into this task and not know anything and fail it. So this actually links into what we would refer to as cognitive load theory. We're trying to shift when you're studying things a certain amount of information from your working memory, where you're kind of trying to use it to problem solve, actually into your long-term memory, where you can retrieve it at will whenever you want and use it to help you answer a question without overloading your working memory, which basically means you can't answer a question at all. I'm going to do a bunch of other videos on the science of learning, if that would be helpful to people, but I really hope this analogy helps in that we're really wanting to think about being prepared for tests and exams. And I guess the thing that's really fundamental for me is I talk a lot to my students who end up saying to me they've had a lot of people tell them that they just can't do tests and they just can't do exams. And some of that is self-talk. Some of it is them telling themselves that they're not able to do it. But some of it is also people around them telling them, oh, you're just not good at tests, or don't worry, some people just don't like exams or just don't like tests. And I suppose it's definitely true to say that we have preferences around our assessment tasks. There are certain tasks that I prefer over others. So I'm certainly not saying that there are tasks that you might find easier, but I really want people to move away from this idea that they can't do something. Please do not ever let anybody tell you that you cannot sit a test. Because if you think to your passion topic, absolutely you can. If you've had enough time to digest the content and if you've had enough time to practice that content yourself. So I'm not saying it's an easy fix. Obviously, we don't have hours and hours and hours to spend on calculus or stoichiometry. That's one of my favourite things. I'm a chemistry teacher. But I really want to hopefully get this idea across that it's about preparation and content knowledge and of having enough time to get that information from your working memory into your long-term memory. If you want to sit a test and smash it, it is possible for you to do so. But let's talk about that in some other video.